Hello friends, my present and humble wishes to all gather here. Myself, I am Natina. I am MSc MPhil in Physics. I was teaching in this field for students those who are preparing for civil service examination for more than 8 years. Right now I am handling Indian polity. So this topic that I am going to handle will be very useful for you to attend various questions in Union Public Service Commission. Not only that, other exams also, but it is exclusive for UPSC exam. So let me start. As I said before, today I am going to start with historical backup, right? Okay. Why we need this? Let me start this session with why we need this. Why we need this? Because each and everything that we are going to learn should have its own backup. We need to know about that, from where it actually we get those concepts, what it is actually, from where backup, which backup we took that, why we took that, what are the merits through that concept we actually obtaining. These are some basic questions we need to get answer, so that only we can understand the concept completely and we can get into the concept, right? So here in this historical backup, I would like to say that you might have learnt in Indian history that ancient and medieval period we have various successful rulers. Not only rulers, various Vedas. Example Rig Veda, as I said before in previous classes. In Rig Veda itself, we are having the Sabha Samiti terms and all, which is actually termed to be the Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha and all. And also we selected our rulers in the way of republic and democratic way. Then only it comes to start, later on it started for the monarchical government. Initially we started up our way of life through democratic way of life. So this democracy, this republic is not a thing that is actually inculcated after the British period or someone else. It is actually being in our mind from the origin. So we started to search for it. You might also hear that our constitution is actually a mere cut copy paste from many constitutions and all. It is a fact. It is not the cut copy paste. The fact that is going to be true. If that is going to give fruit for ourselves, for our people, then our leaders doesn't hesitate to take all those facts and make us fulfill our dream. Okay, so now in this session I would like to start with the British backup. Okay, we no need to concentrate the historical backups like from Chandragupta Maurya, Ashoka till Akbar, Aurangzeb and all. There is a little bit we need to know is they also actually followed in such a way that they are giving respect to people. So we ourselves have general knowledge about what is actually will give respect to people, what will actually decline its respect. Through that we actually referred many constitutions and we took the basic ideas. Here I would like to start with the British East India Company's rules and regulation. So how British East India Company, right? Okay. They actually entered in India in 1600s. Okay. Initially they asked permission with among our rulers. Initially they doesn't get any permission, but during the Jahangir's period, okay, Captain Hawkins actually got permission. Initially they got permission from Queen Victoria, right, in England to do trade practices in India. Similarly, they came to India, they got permission with Jahangir. So they started their factories here. While they started, Jahangir given them some land and some money to start their trade. Initially, not only initially, From the beginning, we all are good traders, Indians. We actually exported our goods, good quality goods. Our Indian goods are very much wanted in all over the world, especially England, right? So they want to take those goods to their land. Not only the cotton, not only the spices, everything here is very precious to them. So they came, they started, right? Okay, after few period of time, they started to control in the form of administration. How? With the help of trade practices, they earned many land and started positioning the area, started administration in that area, right? Then they started their politics towards other European companies like Dutch, Portuguese, then French, okay, etc. Such companies also actually entered here. They are also European companies. They are rivalries for British. Initially, they took very serious steps to get rid of all those companies. Okay, so after excluding Dutch, Portuguese and French, finally they enter into the our king's officials, Indian kings. Okay, so they started to fight with Indian king and captured many places and finally given their full-fledged administration. Once they started giving the full-fledged administration, our people in 1857, initially our people have a tendency that we are actually conquered by many foreign rulers. They actually came to India. After a few years of time, they will think India as their own country will do something good for people. So people are used to it. So people actually thought that British also will be in the same way. Once they came into India, they will also give some more, some good life for people. But the real fact is, British doesn't think India as their own homeland. Their homeland is England. So they started to ruin all the wealth, drain the wealth towards their nation. So it is actually happened. Because of that, our people started to die because of famine. In lakhs and lakhs, in clusters of people are started to dying because of the drain of wealth. So after realizing that, our people started to fight for our nation. It happens in 1857 revolt. After 1857 revolt, the British government actually, until this British East India Company did all those things. After that, British government take over the British company in the name of giving good governance in India. Okay, after that they started the same ruling in different method. Same draining method in different methods. Okay, so then came our freedom fighters who actually veteran, educated, lawyers, etc. They actually started moving towards freedom struggle. Then they started to know about what all the things that is actually needed for India. Then they picked up the important thing, they combined it and gave us a constitution. That constitution is going to be the Indian constitution that we are going to learn in Indian polity. So this will be the brief history. Okay, let me start with Regulating Act. Okay. Regulating Act 1773. Okay. This Regulating Act, until that, see, 1857, it was British East India Company who is actually ruling India, right? So this regulation is also for British East India Company. So this Regulating Act is nothing but regulating the British officials. Why they actually need to regulate British officials? The thing is, British officials are highly corrupted. Because they are just think about a private company is actually taking part in Indian administration. These officials are just private officials, not even a government official. They want to earn something. They want to get back to their land with lot of money. So they started bribing. That is actually happened during this time. So company realizes that in order to stop such corruption practices, they introduced, right? In order to stop corruption practices, they introduced Regulating Act 1773. Okay, This regulating act is nothing but regulation. The first regulating things that was quoted down for British officials. Okay, the first time they actually talked about political and administrative function. They talked about the political and administrative function and the places they captured in India. Okay, so through this regulating act, they given until this regulation there was head who is the governor. They occupied the basic area like Bombay, Madras and Bengal. Okay, so these three areas seems to be the very important place for British officials because these three areas is giving very important revenues. Okay, and the important thing is they also have the Diwani rights. Diwani rights is nothing but Diwani rights for revenue and judicial practices. That is through in this area. These areas actually occupied by British officials. The revenue that here is collected in this area can be shared only by the British peoples, and the judicial practices, whatever the wrong thing, civil or criminal case is going to be happen, it will also be judged by the judicial official, not the Indian kings. This is the Diwani rights. They got this Diwani rights for this area. It is actually yielding a very high amount of revenue for them. They also started to collect more and more revenues from Indian people. So this is the actually starting time. Okay, so they started until this for this Diwani during this time and all. The British is actually headed by governors. They have governor of Bombay, governor of governor of Madras and governor of Bengal. Okay, so in this regulating, they took the governor into Governor-General of Bengal. Okay, higher official is Governor-General of Bengal. Below there, the Madras and Bombay will came. So this is nothing but centralization. Right, centralization. Right, like nothing but we have center, below which we have states. Similarly, the center is going to be the Bengal, below which we have Madras and Bombay presidencies. So centralization started here. The first Governor General of Bengal is Lord Warren Hastings. Right, first Governor General of Bengal is Lord Warren Hastings, and they also started Supreme Court in Calcutta in 1774. Right, why they started Supreme Court? They have Diwani rights. They are in need to produce legal judicial matters. They have to face this judicial matter by themselves. So they need Supreme Court. So they started Supreme Court in 1774. First Supreme Court judge is going to be the Elijah Impey. Elijah Impey is going to be the first Supreme Court judge. Okay, not only that, they also have strict action towards the corruption by British officials, by the natives, among British officials by the natives. So they are actually following a strict corruption practice. So it is actually for the British officials who is actually corrupted by the natives of Indians, and also they given a brief idea that this is the area that they are actually occupied by the British officials. British East India Company is for Britain. That idea is given through this Regulating Act. So I am starting with a class with Regulating Act. This Regulating Act is nothing but regulations for British officials not to be get corrupted by the by natives of Indians, and the political and administrative function to be carried out in India, in the British occupied land. And for that they actually introduced Governor General of Bengal. Madras and Bombay have keep down below the Bengal, and Lord Warren Hastings is to be the first Governor General of Bengal. And Supreme Court was started in Calcutta in 1774. These are some facts in Regulating Act. British have a general idea, general concept that whenever they are creating some acts or regulation, after a few period of time, say a year, 2 year, 3 years something, after that they will revise this law once again. We'll see what are the merits, what are the drawbacks, and create some and the forthcoming regulation they will rectify all those drawbacks. Actually it is takes place in the before act. Similarly, they actually took look over the Regulating Act in 1773. In that also they have seen various drawbacks. So to rectify these drawbacks, they regulated. Okay, they have they overcome the drawbacks of this Regulating Act in the Pitt's India Act. Pitt's India Act of 1784. This Pitt's India Act is also known as Settlement Act. Right, Settlement Act. Why we need this act? Because they need this act to rectify the drawbacks of Regulating Act. They created here, they actually termed the word British possession in India. The important thing is British possession. What is British possession? The area occupied by the British East India Company is for British people, British land. It is British land. It is not Indian land, it is British land. That word is actually coined in this Pitt's India Act. And also they created, in Regulating Act, they actually have a Court of Directors. Court of Directors for commercial and administrative purpose. Okay. Court of Directors will take over the commercial administrative purpose in Regulating Act. This seems to be very difficult for them. So here they started a dual government, that Court of Directors and Board of Control. Okay, they started two dual government pattern, that is Court of Directors and Board of Control. Court of Directors will take over the commercial process and Board of Control will take over the administrative process. See how we can remember this is C for commercial, CC, Court of Directors C, and for commercial. Right, the other thing is for administration, that is to be Board of AB, administrative process, the Board of Control. So you have to have some mnemonics to recall, to remember everything, the year and all. I will also say how to recall this year at the end of this class. So here note it out. For Court of Directors C, commercial process, Board of Control, administrative process. So they started the dual government here. Okay, so Pitt's India Act is nothing but the Settlement Act, which is actually get rid of the drawbacks that is actually happened in the Regulating Act. So that drawbacks also along with that they started saying the British possession in India. Okay, along with that they created a dual government, nothing but Court of Directors and Board of Control. Court of Directors will take all the commercial practices and Board of Control will take all the responsibilities in administration process. Okay, then comes we have various Charter Act, Council Act, and then Government Act. So simple. See, Regulation Act, this actually it can be noted as company rule. Okay, company's rule will have Regulation Act, Charter Act. After that we have 1857 revolt, then comes the Council Act, Government of India Act, which is done by British government. This is actually done by the British East India Company. So the Regulating Act, Pitt's India Act, and the Charter Act. Charter Act is nothing but for every 20 years, like this regulations, like Pitt's India Act, they will have every 20 years, they will look over all those administrative process done by the British officials and will start rectify the drawbacks in the upcoming regulations. So Charter Act will say about the drawbacks, merits and demerits for every 20 years, they will look over it. So it is actually started in 1793 and ended in 1853. So we have 4 Council Acts, Charter Acts. So Charter Acts, the important thing is 1833 Charter Act and 1853 Charter Act. Right. So let me focus in 1833 Charter Act. So in this 1833 Charter Act, they started the pure administrative. They started with the idea of administrative process. Now they start giving up the commercial trade practices and completely entered as an administrative role. So British East India Company entered as an administrative company, and also they are given a word by their government that whenever the government is going to have a negative concepts, negative ideas about the British East India Company, the British government will take over the British East India Company. Okay, so they indirectly said that within a few years of time, this British East India Company will be taken over by British government. That idea was given in 1833 Charter Act. And also here we have seen that Governor-General of Bengal. Now the Governor-General of Bengal is actually changed as Governor-General of India in 1833 Charter Act. So the first Governor-General of India is Lord William Bentinck. So Lord William Bentinck seems to be the first Governor-General of Bengal. Okay, so first Governor-General of Bengal is given in 1833 Charter Act. And also until then the various regulations that all those given by the British East India Company seems to be the regulation. From the 1833 Charter Act, it is actually called as Act. Not regulation, it is Act. Okay, and also the British government have given a clear mission, clear idea that whenever the government feel that the British East India Company is not worth, they will take over the British East India Company's all the positions. Such idea is given during this Charter Act. Along with that, they also have an idea that to rule India, Indians also should be entered into the administrative process. So there should be open competition among British and Indian people. So Indian people should also enter into the competition for Indian civil service. Right? For Indian civil service. Should enter for Indian civil service. So what is this? Here they have given the idea, but it was completely opposed by the Court of Directors. Right, Court of Directors actually opposed this idea of Indian civil service open competition for not only the British but also for the Indians. So they opposed this. Okay, so Court of Directors have opposed this. Okay, then comes the Charter Act, 1853 Charter Act. Okay, so 1833 Charter Act is nothing but the Governor-General of Bengal. Now the term is termed as Governor-General of India. The first Governor-General of India seems to be Lord William Bentinck. The first Governor-General of Bengal is Lord Warren Hastings. Like Lord William Bentinck, B for 2, A, B. So second time, the first Governor-General of India is Lord William Bentinck. Have such a remembrance. And until then, they have a regulation from this 1833 Charter Act. We have it as a Act. Okay, and then Indian Civil Service. They started for open competition for Indian Civil Service. In that, the Court of Directors strongly opposed the concept. Then comes the 1853, right? 1853 Charter Act. 1853 Charter Act actually says, gives an idea, clear vision to conduct Indian civil service open competition for all Indians. They accepted it. So yeah, ICS was being accepted by the British officials. Then they started, okay, then here they have given a clear, the government given a strong fold that within a few time we will take over the company. Whenever the government thinks so, it will take over the company. Such idea was strongly said during the 1853 Charter Act. Along with that, the Maclay Committee was introduced. Maclay Committee was introduced. It is nothing but the way of study pattern for Indians, right, through British peoples, because they want us to study the method, the pattern, the history of their own, in order to grasp the Indian people's attention towards them. They want to rule India, so they want to change the study pattern, everything, so that the people will think higher about them. So in order to make that, they actually introduced a Macaulay Committee for Studies in this 1853 Charter Act. Here comes we finished the company rule. Here from this the company rule has been gone over. Then comes the 1857 revolt. After 1857 revolt, the company has been completely took over by the British officials, and comes the Government Act. Okay, so from there here on we have Government Act, 1858 Government Act, right? 1858 Government Act. Here we have completed the company rule, Charter Act. Okay, then Company Rule Regulating Act, then we have Pitt's India Act, then we have 1833 Act, 1853 Act. All these acts have various ideas of British East India Company. Then because of 1857 revolt, the company has been taken over by the British officials. So we started having the 1858 Government Act. Okay, let me discuss about 1858 Government Act. Until then we have Governor-General of Bengal. Here we have Governor-General of India. Here the posting was given as a Viceroy. Okay, Viceroy is nothing but the current president. The president, now Indian president, have some powers. The same power is actually vested to this Viceroy during that time. We took various powers of president from this Viceroy's power. Okay, so Viceroy was created, and Secretary of State was also created. Secretary of State, it is actually nothing but the people in Secretary of State is directly linked with British government, right? British government in the England. They all are cabinet members of British Parliament. Clear? Because Viceroy is going to be the head of the British position in India. Below them they have Secretary of State. These Secretary of State will be assisted by the 15-member council. These 15 members are direct members of the cabinet of British Parliament, so that they can rule India in a straight way, right? So they introduce Viceroyship. They introduce Secretary of State among the 15 members who all are the cabinet members of each British government. From all this, the British East India Company's chapter has been over. The British government's ruling take place. Okay. After this, we have various Council Act. Yes or no? Council Act. Council Act is 1861, 1892, 1909. 1909, 3 Council Act we have. Clear? So, 1861 Council Act. 1861 Council Act is nothing but, so British people think because of 1857 revolt, they thought that Indians are not happy with their rulings. They have a clear idea that the Indian peoples are not happy with their ruling. So, in order to overcome that, they actually need to think about the Indian peoples also. So, in order to make the people to think high about British government, they actually have a clear plan that to include Indians also in the government practices, so that Indians may think that the British officials, British is not going to do any harm for them, because we ourselves entering into the administration process. In order to make that idea among Indians, they started including the Indians in the British officials. Like 1861 Act, they have legislative and executive wing. They have 2 wings. Okay, legislative and executive. Okay, legislative and executive wing. This legislative wing is a law-making process, as in case of now, in the present government also, the parliament, the legislative wing will make the law-making. Similarly, this legislative will make the law-making process, and the executive wing is nothing but one will proceed on with the law, will make the law to be proceed on with among the people. Right? So, these two actually started, legislative and the executive. Okay. 1861 Act. In that they have joined some peoples from the Indians. The important people are Raja of Benares, Maharaja of Patiala, Sir Dinkar Rao. Okay, 3 members actually, a puppet member of British officials, they have been joined because they want to make the people to believe that Indians also enter into the administration process. But they are very clear that every majority, every power is within the British officials, not it is shared among the Indians. So they want a puppet rulers, puppet members, that those who are going to ask the one and only words of British people. So Sir Raja of Banaras, Maharaja of Patiala, Sir Dinkar Rao have been given posting in the legislative wing. Okay, they also given some more portfolios. Portfolios is nothing but portfolio. Portfolio is nothing but given a specific power, like a specific area is allotted for specific people, so that they can work among in that specific area. Example, agriculture. A single person will give power among agriculture. He can do all the merits and can rectify demerits in that agriculture alone. Such portfolios has been introduced in 1861. So then comes the 1892 Charter Act. Okay, 1892 Charter Act. In that act, they actually increase the legislative members number. Like here they have introduced 3 members. Here they are increased up to 16 members. Legislative members of India is in India. The Indians have been included. The members number of the Indian members is said to be 16. Okay, and also they increased the power of portfolio, and they asked the people, the members, to can ask question about budget. They can rectify their doubts in the legislative process. While making laws, they can ask question, they can make question, they can give an ideas for legislative purpose. This is actually included in 1892 Council Act. After that we have 1909. 1909 is nothing but Morley-Minto reform. Minto. Morley is nothing but Secretary of the State. Minto is nothing but the Viceroy. Okay, Morley-Minto reform. It is also known as Communal Representation Act. Okay, so why we can discuss it. Okay. So Council Act 1861, 1892. Here the legislative members, Indians have been included in the legislative members. The number of Indians in the legislative wing has been increased in 1892 Charter Act. Here it is increased from 16 to 60 as a legislative wing. But they are very clear that the majority is maintained among British peoples, so that if a voting is going to happen, British will have their own hand. So such clearance, such maintenance is maintained by the British officials. Okay, so the legislative number is increased from 16 to 60 here. Okay, along with that they actually increased member in the executive wing also. These members are included in the legislative wing. Here in 1999 Charter Act, they included members in executive. Satyendra Prasad Sinha was the first law member included in the Executive Council, and also they actually created a separate seat for Muslims. Separate seat for Muslims, because they want to rule India by divide and rule policy. Why divide and rule policy? Indians are actually being opposing the British rule. They want people to be divided, and they want people to fight among themselves, and they are the higher official to rectify all those fight and all. So in order to have this higher position, they divided India. Hindu Muslims division, they partitioned, and the Muslims were given a separate electorate. Actually Muslims also accepted that in a very eager way, because they too want their own head to rule themselves. So separate electorate was introduced by Minto. So Minto is termed to be the father of the communal representation. Okay, so 1909 is also known as Morley-Minto reform. Here the legislative number is increased from 16 to 60, whereas legislative member, the Indians have been included in the legislative member in the 1861 Charter Act. Then it was further increased in 1892 Charter Act. Finally from 16 to 60 in the Morley-Minto reform. Okay, so then the executive members also have the Indian officials. Satyendra Prasad Sinha seems to be the first law member to added in the executive wing. Then we have separate electorate for Muslims. In order to follow the divide and rule policy, British introduced a separate electorate system for Muslims, where the Muslims can have their own head. Muslim people can elect their own head. Such thing was introduced, which is introduced by Minto. So he is termed as the father of communal representation. Okay. So these are the Council Act. Now we can move for Government Act. So Government Act is nothing but we have various. Here I have discussed 1858 Government Act. Here we have discussed 1858 Government Act. Government Act we have 1858 Government Act, 1919 Government Act, 1935 Government Act, 1947 Government Act. These are the Government Acts. You should make clear. You should be clear that 1858 seems to be the first Government Act. Then we have a 1919 Government Act. Then we have 1935 Government Act. Then we have 1947 Government Act, which is nothing but the freedom for Indian people. Okay. 1858 Government Act has been discussed. The Viceroy has been introduced. Secretary of the State has been introduced in that 15-member council, who is going to be the direct contact with the British officials. Then we have the Government Act. Okay. So I will discuss about the Government Act in the upcoming classes, and we will discuss about the making of constitution in also in further class. Let me wind up here. Let me give a glimpse that I have said about the Indian historical backup, which is actually we referred for making our constitution in that regulating act, Pigs in the Act, various Charter Act, that is 1833 Charter Act, 1853 Charter Act, and we discussed Council Act, that is from 1861, 1892, 1909 Council Act. Then we have Government Act. Government Act will be discussed in the upcoming classes. Okay. Thank you.